finally got some money set aside and you're wondering, is it time to get serious about buying a house? Or maybe you don't have any money set aside, but your friends and your parents are always hounding you about when are you gonna buy a house? Whether you're an investor or potential homeowner, you should be curious about where the market is heading. So I invite you, dive in with me to figure out if you should rent or you should own. And as a bonus, we'll talk about an emerging way for investors to buy and develop multifamily style communities. However, they're in neighborhoods. If you're new here, I'm Branton Schreiner, and we're in beautiful Kansas City, Missouri, home of the Kansas City Chiefs on a 4-0 win streak right now. Haven't lost in a while. Probably gonna end up being in the Super Bowl. I'm an everyday dude. I dropped out of college. I was a waiter for several years. When I decided to dedicate my attention to pursuing passive income streams, I chose real estate, and relentlessly pursuing real estate, I'm expanding into multifamily apartment buildings when I got started with a couple single family properties. We are gonna become a renter nation in this country. It's gonna become the economic choice and the most desirable choice in this country again. So Grant Cardone said that, and though I disagree with him on a lot of things, on this point, I agree. Personally, I own 50 units and run a multi-million-dollar real estate company, and I still rent. So what is the market telling us? Well, high demand, low supply, and low mortgage rates have driven up home prices to historic highs this past summer. Rising home prices are keeping prospective buyers out of homeownership. However, this can be good for the rental market. Home prices usually drop in the fall, but median home prices were up 12.9% for the last week ending October 3rd, comparing to the same time last year according to Realtor.com. Meanwhile, rent prices slid this summer, making apartments even more desirable. So, are we becoming a renter's nation? Let's find out. As a U.S. Census Bureau reports, in 2021, homeownership across the country is steadily declining. Millennials and Gen Z are two demographic groups that here traditionally have been renting where they live. So, as the tenants get older and they start their families, they typically want a place to live that they can also call their own. Meanwhile, in the build-to-rent home model, this has indeed been one of the most fastest growing sectors in the United States housing market in 2019. So the big question is, why is build-to-rent increasing? Large levels of student debt combined with high housing prices can sometimes put home ownership out of reach. Another reason why the demand for build-to-rent housing is gaining popularity is that capital is readily available. In 2017, Fannie Mae backed a 10-year, $1 billion loan for the largest single-family rental operator in the United States. Now, one of the great things about investing in real estate in the US, and something I love, is that financing for single-family rental property isn't limited to the big players. Smaller investors are also seeking loans for build-to-rent housing. As a result, more rental communities are being created to meet the growing demand. So another great part for investors is that when they buy single-family build-to-rent homes, they have plenty of different exit strategies when it comes time to sell or refinance their assets. Hold the phone.
Don't look back, just listen.
When you're buying real estate, when you're developing, when you're fixing and flipping, when you're wholesaling, when you're doing subject to, when you're doing all these different creative strategies in real estate, it's so important to have multiple exit strategies. I cannot tell you so many times. I bought a property, tried to flip it, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just hold this because I don't really want that, those capital gains to come on my taxes. It can rent for this. And as the market shifts, you want to be able to offload properties. You might be able to want to keep them and Airbnb them. So you want to be able to have your credit lined up to where you can, refinance properties. You want to be able to have a big buyer's list if you need to sell properties. You want to have a good realtor that can help list your properties and get multiple bids on it, multiple offers. Can't stress enough, have multiple exit strategies. Now, do the pros outweigh the cons? Well, let's head upstairs and we'll discuss that. All right, so here are the pros. You have some shared open air amenities. That means like if you're in a big subdivision, you can share all the amenities. Maybe it's a pool, maybe there's a little dog park, things of that nature. You also have on-site leasing and property management. There's probably, in these build-to-rent models, probably either a house or actually a built-in office area for people to come in and fill out applications and things like that. One of the things that I'm curious about is they're saying there's predictable and lower maintenance costs. I'm curious on if that's true compared to typical vertical multifamily, which built to rent is more horizontal multifamily communities. Another thing that is a pro is larger 3 and 4 bedroom homes that are attracted to more mature renters with bigger families. So think your pharmacists, think your, physician's assistants, think people that are making 6 figures a year and they have, 2 or 3 kids, but they want to have the amenities of an apartment building. However, they want to live in a community that's more, more spread out, to where they don't feel like maybe they're living on top of each other like maybe in New York. Another thing that is potentially a pro is tenants stay longer in these single family rentals compared to multifamily or apartment rentals. Once again, that's kind of to be determined because this whole model is emerging, so I'm curious on that as well. Lower transaction costs compared to buying one-off homes than ones being listed on the MLS. It just kind of depends in the build-to-rent space. Yes, that's true, but at the same time, it kind of depends on what lifestyle you want to have. So there are some potential drawbacks. Now, rents might be higher with smart home technologies and community amenities built into the monthly rent. Now, this kind of reminds me of like HOAs, which I'm not a fan of at all. They're essentially homeowners associations, but they're kind of like also built into these built to rent models. So it could be a higher cost, but if you like the amenities, maybe that's fine with you. Another drawback would be middle and lower priced homes in markets with low land costs work best for built to rent real estate, which may limit development to certain parts of the country. So this built to rent model may not work obviously in New York because it's going to need to be more spread out versus you can take a small parcel of land in New York and just build a skyscraper of apartments. Demand for built to rent housing often outstrips the pace of construction, making property in some markets hard to find. So also a drawback in the construction phase of the projects. Be careful of rationalizing an expensive deal that doesn't make sense. Built to rent housing needs to be the right type of product in the right market. All right, so here's the deal. So in my opinion, from the experience that I have in real estate, I personally love the built to rent model in certain parts of the country. If you're in Los Angeles or New York and you do the build to rent model, I think it's just going to be difficult because the price per square foot on the land is very expensive. However, I do see us becoming more of a renter nation. That's why I've been selling off a lot of my single families, investing into multifamily real estate. I don't see that changing, honestly. I see a lot of hedge funds that we sell 5 to 10 deals a month to, buying up tons of single family real estate. I think it's going to become more difficult to become a homeowner over the next 10 years. So, with that being said, I think the built to rent model is very interesting. I do think it's very location specific, but I would love to have a built to rent community or maybe like a short-term rental community that was built to rent. So maybe we'll do a whole nother video on something I'll do on that. But that's kind of my expert take on that. Bonus content. So personally, why do I rent versus own? I think that if you're gonna actually own your own primary residence, you need to be prepared to live there for 3 to 5 years. And that might be, there's some people that disagree with that comment or say, no, you should own your house that you live in because you're throwing money away paying rent. Well, I'm also just paying to live closer to the city, closer to all my investments, closer to my office, which is efficiency, which saves me time, which helps me to have a better lifestyle, which then I can take all that compound decision making and grow my personal development, grow my spiritual life, grow my relationships, all those things. And then thirdly, if I decide to go in, own my own house, like I said, I'm gonna have to live there 3 to 5 years, and I'm gonna have to go put 10% down typically, unless I do the BRRRR strategy, which you have an infinite return. But even if I were to own my own house, I'd have to take my cruise off of one of my multifamily projects or one of my flips or something else I'm doing that's actually generating revenue for my business to take them off, slow them down, and then go put them on my own primary residence project, which I could always go find another contractor crew and do that. But just at this stage in the game, I think you just have to know yourself. I think that, if you were to summarize it down, you have to be self-aware. Are you buying a home just because other people are telling you to buy a home? Are you just doing that because you think you should because the real estate market's hot? For me personally, I'm happy. I'm happy renting right now. My investments are doing well. My businesses are doing well. I like living close to my office. And if the right opportunity comes up where I can buy a house that I can also Airbnb while I'm gone, that's what makes sense for me. I don't want to own a property that I cannot Airbnb while I'm gone. That's my own personal take. I think that should be everyone's take. If you're going to buy a primary house, I'm always thinking, how can I offset that expense, right? If that's house hacking where you live with roommates, which is fine, but I'm always thinking how can I offset any expense I ever incur? And so that's kind of my philosophy. If you're going to buy your own home, make sure you're offsetting some of the expenses, then go for it. If not, it's okay to live a comfortable lifestyle in your earlier 20s, as long as you're investing aggressively. I wouldn't recommend just paying $2,000 a month in rent if you didn't have good financial stability in your life, which I don't even pay that much at all. I pay like $850, all expenses incurred, in a really nice place here in Kansas City. So there's my hot take on renting versus owning. If there's any other topics you want me to share about, any software I'm using, how we're doing, multiple six figures in my wholesale business, from me to acquiring 0 to 70 units over the last 4 years of real estate, would happy to answer any questions. Stay tuned. Would love for you guys to become everyday investors just like me. Peace.